doubt you've ever dared to love anybody that much.
This is my favorite scene from the film Good Will Hunting. In it, Robin Williams plays a therapist named Sean McGuire, and Matt Damon plays his patient, Will Hunting. Will is a mathematical genius with an incredible gift for solving problems that no one else can. Here he is in the halls of Harvard University. But he's not a student, he's a janitor. We learn that Will is an orphan, and that every caregiver in his life, the people who were supposed to love him most, abandoned him. As a child, he moved from one foster home to another, and he learned to protect himself the only way he knew how. Act tough. Never be vulnerable. Push people away so they can never get too close. For 20 years, this is what he's done to survive. It's a defense mechanism that he carries with him everywhere he goes. Other therapists try to get through to him, but Will pushes them all away. One by one, they each give up on him, which only confirms his cycle of abandonment. One day, Will meets a woman named Skylar. She's a student at Harvard, and before long they're dating. But when he realizes that he could actually fall in love with her, it terrifies him. "What are you so afraid of?" she asks. He lashes out, attacking her with the meanest things he can think of to say. But it's a way to hide his real feelings. "I'm afraid you're going to leave me, the same way everyone in my life leaves me." And so he sabotages the relationship. He breaks up with her so that he can feel like he's the one in control. It's a tragic irony that he creates exactly the situation he's afraid of, because he's never felt any kind of stable love he could trust in. But then he meets a new therapist, Sean. Will tries to push him away just like he does with everyone else, but this time it doesn't work. Sean refuses to give up on him. We learn that Sean grew up in a similar situation. In their sessions together, Sean gives Will a safe place to open up by showing his own vulnerability first. We learn that Sean lost his wife to cancer. She was the love of his life, and for all the pain and the grief that he feels now that she's gone, he doesn't regret a single moment of their time together. It's through Sean that Will sees an example of a relationship that doesn't end in abandonment. He comes to understand that real love requires that we take a risk, a leap of faith, that love can only happen when we open ourselves up and take a chance that we might get hurt. It's a risk worth taking because it's these rare connections we have that make life worth living. Which brings us back here to this very famous scene. It's here that we find Sean telling Will something that he thinks he already understands, that all the things that happened to him as a child weren't his fault. "I know," Will says. Will knows this on an intellectual level, but he hasn't processed it emotionally. "It's not your fault." Sean repeats it over and over again. Will tries to lash out again, but Sean isn't speaking to Will, the young man standing in his office. He's speaking to Will, the wounded inner child, the orphan boy who never learned to trust anyone, the boy who felt so unloved in this world, so profoundly abandoned that he couldn't help but ask, "What is it that's so bad about me, that everyone leaves me in the end?" "It's not your fault." Will breaks down in tears, but for the first time in his life, he's truly vulnerable with another person, and it's only now that he can really start to heal. It's a beautiful scene, and even though Will's story is an extreme example, all of us have to make the journey to self-love and acceptance.
Depression and anxiety among adolescents was already at crisis levels,
and 3 out of 5 girls said they felt persistently sad or hopeless.
Because in a society where self-criticism is normalized, many of us struggle with a lack of self-love, an inner voice that points out every mistake and every perceived failing, telling us we're not good enough. This is especially true for those who grew up in a situation where their teachers, caregivers, or parents were overly critical. Even our cultural messaging would have us believe that we aren't worthy of being loved unless we look a certain way or achieve certain things. Over time, we end up internalizing these patterns until our self-worth becomes conditional. The unspoken assumption is that maybe after I've done all these things, I'll finally deserve to be loved. The thing is, no one tells us how to build a kind and trusting relationship with ourselves. The psychologist Dr. Kristin Neff is a pioneer in the area of self-compassion research. She wrote the book Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. In it, she explains the remarkable benefits of self-compassion, the fact that people who practice it have less anxiety, they're less depressed, and they're more resilient to the stresses of everyday life. They're also healthier, having stronger immune function and a lower risk for heart disease. So how do we practice self-compassion? She describes 3 key elements, and we'll look at each of them in this video. In order to be kind to ourselves, we first have to notice those moments when we're being too critical, because we can't heal the things we aren't aware of. This requires paying attention to our feelings in the moment without any judgment. Are you being too hard on yourself? Are you having unkind thoughts? Because the key to mindfulness is the recognition that you are not your thoughts. You don't have to believe every passing idea that comes into your mind. At any moment, you have the power to choose which thoughts are worth paying attention to and which ones aren't. For example, the sentence, "I feel guilty," doesn't mean the same thing as "I am guilty." Guilt isn't a permanent part of who you are. It's an opportunity to admit that you made a mistake, but you can make amends and learn from it. That is the only way we grow, and we can take things one day at a time. One of my favorite affirmations comes from the author Ralph Waldo Emerson. Finish each day and be done with it. You did what you could. Some blunders and absurdities no doubt crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. You shall begin it serenely and with too high a spirit to be encumbered with your old nonsense. The second key is what Kristin Neff calls the recognition of the common human experience. The word compassion actually means to suffer together. Implicit in this is the understanding that life is hard, but we don't suffer alone. Sooner or later, adversity and loss comes for all of us. It's because the human experience is imperfect that we stumble. It's why we struggle with feelings of inadequacy and failure. And it's in our shared experience of suffering that we are one. To see this, consider the fact that in order for you to be alive right now, you needed to have 2 parents. Each of them also had 2 parents, which means you had 4 grandparents, and 8 great-grandparents, and 16 second great-grandparents, and so on and so forth. The fact that you were born means that just 12 generations ago, there were a total of 4,094 ancestors that came before you over the last 400 years. That's 4,094 lifetimes. Imagine for a moment, how many struggles did they have? How many hardships? What tragedies did they endure? But also think about all the moments of joy and happiness they must have had, the stories of love and expressions of hope for the future, all the things they had to overcome for you to be here in this very moment. You are the culmination of all those hopes. This realization helps us to see that our lives are so deeply embedded in an interconnected tapestry of shared experience that none of us could ever be alone. And it's in this experience that we are one and the same. The third key is self-kindness. The voice of self-criticism asks, "Am I good enough?" But the voice of self-compassion asks, "What's good for me?" It taps into our innate desire to connect with all the things we need to be healthy and happy. Self-compassion means having the courage to say no to the things that don't serve you. It's deciding what you welcome into your life and what you don't, however uncomfortable that might be. And to do that, you have to give yourself the same care you'd give to a dear friend or a loved one. There's a scene from the movie Avengers Endgame where Thor has one last visit with his mother, who he knows will soon pass away. She notices immediately that this is her son, but he's not the same son that she knows. She intuits that he's from a different time and place, and wherever that place is, it hasn't been kind to him. Thor blames himself for all the terrible things that have happened to the people he loves. "I'm no hero," he says. "I'm a failure, an idiot with an X." His mother tells him that he's right. He has failed. But do you know what that makes you? Just like everyone else. "I'm not supposed to be like everyone else," he says. Well, everyone fails at who they're supposed to be. The true measure of a person is how well they succeed at being who they really are. His mother helps him break this pattern of self-blame, the loving voice that reframes his criticism in a kind and supportive way. It's what he needs to stop beating himself up for the things he couldn't have helped, to let go of a past he can't change. And it's only then that he can move forward and begin to heal. This scene shows us that self-compassion is a way of relating to what's good in all of us, so that we can feel safe to try new things, to challenge ourselves, and to make mistakes along the way. It's what frees us to chase our dreams with the confidence we need to actually achieve them. So how do you put all this together into something you can actually use? Dr. Kristin Neff gives many techniques in her book, Self-Compassion, but I'll share my favorite one with you here. Whenever you're dealing with self-criticism, take 15 minutes to sit in a quiet and comfortable place. Take a few deep breaths and just notice what you're feeling. Are you anxious? Are you feeling unworthy or unloved? See if you can just sit with these emotions without judging them and without ruminating on the details of the situation you're in. Just accept that whatever you're feeling now is okay. Next, pay attention to your breath and see if you can feel where those emotions are in your body. Is that feeling in your chest, your stomach? Where is it? Just let yourself feel whatever it is without trying to resist it. Then place your hand over your heart and set an intention to offer yourself compassion for the suffering you're feeling now. Remember, you're not alone. What you're feeling is a deep and profound part of the human experience, and every one of your ancestors at one time or another felt the same thing. I like to imagine all of them surrounding me, sending love and positive energy. Now repeat to yourself softly and gently, may I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be kind to myself. May I accept my life as it is. As you repeat these words, notice your breath and the gentle feeling of your hand on your heart. If you feel overwhelmed with emotion, you can always go back to your breath and pay attention to how it feels to inhale and then exhale. Do this for as long as you like, and whenever you feel ready, you can slowly go back to your day. What's great about this is that you can practice it anywhere, while taking a walk, sitting in traffic, or waiting in line at the grocery store. And when we do this, we can't help but find ourselves moving to a place of self-love, and it can't help but expand in all kinds of ways, because ultimately, it's the love of self that opens us up to a greater love of humanity as a whole. There's one more key to self-love, and that is learning to face all the parts of who you are, even the parts you aren't proud of. It's what Carl Jung called the shadow, and it's this part of the self that we'll look at in the next video. Once it's available, you'll see it appearing on the left side of the screen. Do you have any tips or thoughts on dealing with self-love and acceptance? Let me know in the comments with a heart emoji. And I would absolutely love it if you pressed the like button. It really helps me out. As always, thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.